hopefully in January I will release my favorite comics of 2024.
Well, that didn't happen, but I'm back after over 6 months. Jesus. But you know who else is back? Good old Captain America with a new #1, less than 2 years after Jasinski's. God damn it, Marvel. I mean, if you really want to get into specifics, technically this is actually less than a year since a #1. The Sam Wilson mini that started in January. That continued the legacy numbering, which means Marvel technically relaunched the Cap title twice in the same year. So that's got to be new record, right? Right? Moving on. So yes, 2 weeks ago, Captain America #1 released by Chip Zdarsky and Valerio Skiddy. I want to say his name is. I apologize for the mispronunciation. And if you followed me on Twitter or Comic Geeks, I mean, there's a possibility if you're on Comic Geeks, you probably found this post. But no, I was not excited for this run quite a bit, actually. I'm not going to rehash everything I said, but basically, I finished Zdarsky's Batman run. And to say I liked that run would be an overstatement. Yes, I said I loved it. However, that was in May of 2023. That was 10 issues so far in his run, or is it 12? No, it was 10. Yeah, it was 10. The more I think about what Zdarsky did with Batman, I think that's the worst run in this volume. Hush 2 was the worst story, but I don't consider that a run. That makes sense. But this video isn't about his Batman run. That comes later, once I find the will to actually reread it. Now, I had also not read Avengers Twilight or his Invaders series, so my experience with Chip was Daredevil, which I really loved. The Spectacular Spider-Man series he did, which I think is amazing. And his Batman run, which I've said before, I don't like. So why was I so apprehensive of him writing Cap? I think it's kind of simple. Batman was his most recent work. That was the most recent thing of his I had read and he had released. So naturally, I think if I don't like a writer's most recent work, I'm going to be just a little hesitant of what they do next. So after all of that, does Chip knock it out of the park with this issue, or is this a miss with him? And having read the first issue twice, yeah, I think it's great. I am so glad to be saying that. You've probably noticed, but I like Captain America just a little bit. My Twitter is a cap layout, and Comic Geeks has Kirby's cap as my profile picture. Same thing with YouTube. I have an art print of his suit from Age of Ultron, I want to say it is. So I would have liked this issue one way or another, but man, it's just a great issue. So my excitement for the book actually began at the end of June when I read Avengers Twilight, and to say I love that book would be a bit of an understatement. But what about the new one? Why do I think this is one of the strongest starts to a run? So I will be spoiling it just a little bit, pretty much actually all of it, but Marvel already did that, so the decision to make this be Captain America Year 1.5, I call it Year 1.5 because it's not Steve's first year as Cap, but it's his first year in the modern age, so 1.5. But making this first arc take place seemed a bit odd to me. I don't hate flashback stories or arcs, but I think they can hinder pacing, especially as an opening arc, because the book won't get to modern day Marvel till I'm assuming January. But like with anything, I should have just waited for to actually read the issue because yeah, I think it's a great decision. So the book takes place in what I'm assuming is the mid 2000s. The opening is the actual opening page is literally just 9/11, and we meet our David Colton for the first time, who looks like he's 12 or something like that, around that age. But Cap's first introduction is amazing. If anything else, Chip writes a really good Cap. He's smart and adapt. He's smart and adapts the new time well. My favorite bit, it was when Steve moves from acting like a traditional superhero, realizing that's not gonna work, and just being a fellow soldier to this guy. I don't know, it was just a great moment. And so, because I'm an idiot, when I first read this, I thought this guy was tricked into performing this act of terrorism. But no, this was all his own free will, and that just adds so much. I'm glad Chip doesn't say the war in Afghanistan was justified or that it happened so the US could perform acts of imperialism. There's nuance that's shown in both this guy and David Colton. Colton wants to serve because he feels that what the Taliban is doing is wrong and the US needs to get involved. His mother thinks it's a racist war, and I think the terrorist he has a name, I don't remember what it is. But he thinks the war is useless, and the only way to show that is by bombing the UN, or at least the building. So David Colton, the brief appearances he's had so far, he is already becoming such a unique addition to Captain America's world. So he's basically if Steve was born, or not born, but he was a child around 9/11. He reacted to it, and the US's reaction to 9/11 and the invasion of Afghanistan. He desperately wants to join the military and serve his country, just like Steve Rogers did. Because I think, I could be wrong, but I believe it's canon that Steve joined the army after Pearl Harbor and not before. I could be wrong, but this guy David, he wants to serve his country, but is rejected time after time after time for being frail. He has poor eyesight, like 60 or 20/60. And the cherry on top of all of this, he has asthma, which makes doing literally anything impossible. He gets into fights with the other recruits who don't trust him, think he's a liability, just like Steve was. And even his drill sergeant just beats the shit out of him one night. But like both him and Steve, they both don't give up. They get back up. Um and I didn't pick up on this the first time, but David's actually reading Steve's war journal, or at least I'm pretty sure he is. And that was just a unique and cool detail I think is interesting. But there is just one teeny tiny thing with David I'm worried about. So he takes the super soldier serum and becomes, a big buff guy like Steve. However, he's offered it by who I think is a general, or at least somebody who's high up in the military that he's able to just ask this random guy if he wants to take an experimental drug. Uh, and I But what I'm worried about is that what will happen by the end of this arc, he becomes evil and has to fight Cap. Now, I don't want this to happen, mostly because I think that's just the most boring way to develop his character, but also because I don't know how Chip would differentiate him from William Burnside. Now, if you're unfamiliar with who William Burnside is, and I don't blame you, how do I explain this in the short, simplest way I can? Okay, so you had Captain America from the 40s book, and it ran all the way up to the 50s. We all know what happened. Cap is it's retcon that Steve went to the ice in 45 and didn't wake him until Avengers number 4. But like I said, the Cap book continued into the 50 and was named Commie Smasher. and it was retconned that the Captain America of that time is a dude named William Burnside, who was this obsessive fan of Captain Bucky. He, I think, dyed his hair blonde and got facial surgery to make himself look like Steve Rogers. And I think the government actually gave him the serum and then employed him as the official Captain America until Steve came back. Now, Burnside hasn't been used since the end of Brubaker's run. So, yes, if what I think could happen where he just becomes Burnside, David is filling in that role. But I also think if Chip just wants an evil Cap, John Walker already fits that bill. No, John Walker's not evil, but he's also not good. He's the dark mirror to Cap, basically. I think Grunwald described him as like if Steve was a dick, basically. I'm misinterpreting something, but I think uh, I'm sure there's a quote somewhere that I'll find that like explains what Grunwald was saying with who John Walker was supposed to be. But yeah, John Walker already fits that bill of an evil Cap. And I don't know how David would fit into the modern landscape of Marvel and Super Soldiers. There's already a ton of them running around. I think the Winter Soldier technically counts as one. I don't know where Isaiah Bradley is. I think he showed up in the Sam Wilson mini, the one that released this year, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while since I've read that series. But there's also just a lot of there's Steve and Sam who are already the main Captain Americas, and I think adding a third one is just gonna overcomplicate things just a little bit. But there's also just the possibility that Doom just kills him at the end. But I'm very excited to see how he gets developed and if my expectations will be subverted by Chip Zdarsky. But speaking of Doom, he doesn't appear in this issue. However, he is mentioned, and there's actually a pretty cool parallel between him and Steve. So I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but Steve basically says Doom has hidden and disappeared into his role as Doctor Doom, and with Steve entering a post 9/11 world, literally, Chip is basically asking the question of can Steve bring back this hope and light back into the world? Does allowing Steve to be this living legend of World War II be enough to change him and possibly the world? Will the Stars and Stripes be his armor, just like the mask and I think being the leader of Latveria is for Doom? It's a unique take, and I kind of get why he decided to have Doctor Doom be the first major villain of this arc. Also, because I'm pretty sure it was meant to tie in with One World Under Doom and the movie next year. Let's talk about the art. The art by Valerio Schiti. I think it's Schiti. I don't know. Somebody's going to tell me how to pronounce his name. I apologize to you. But it's amazing. The action's quick. It's fun to follow. I think he's paced it well. That the escalation of like action scenes is fast, but nothing's moving so fast that it feels like we're getting from point A to point B in under 2 seconds. There's a natural progression, especially with the motorcycle chase, that I think that it doesn't seem unrealistic. Even the smaller moments are great. The conversation between Steve and Mr. Fantastic is just great. It's a wonderful moment, and like I didn't even catch on for the first time. But it's also kind of weird that the first issue of Fantastic Four #1, I think just got retcon because Captain America is there to intervene. I could be wrong, but I think this has just been retconned to oblivion. I don't know. I don't know how to. His the panel layout's great. Yeah, I don't know how to explain what I think about art other than I like it or I don't like it. But that doesn't fly with me. So to conclude this, yeah, I think Captain America #1 is an amazing start to this run. It's exciting, it's fun, and I think it balances the political aspect of Captain America very well. Because even if people don't always want to say this or admit it, Captain America is inherently a political character. It's been talked to death, but the whole thing of him punching Hitler in the first issue or the first cover of his series is a political statement, whether or not you want to admit it or not. It's what it is. But I think what this book is doing is it's balancing the superhero aspect with the political stuff very well. Nothing takes center stage too much. I haven't read Ta-Nehisi Coates' run. What I want to say, and I think with what I've heard about his Black Panther run, I'm assuming his Cap run is very politically focused and not so much the fun superhero stuff. Because you also have to remember Captain America is a guy who literally wears the American flag on him and throws a frisbee around at people. So there's a tonal balance people need to actually be able to reach without making one take center stage and whatever. I think Chip has a great voice for Cap throughout Avengers Twilight and Invaders. That was the one constant I had always said was his voice for Cap is strong. He balances the compassion, the empathy Cap has with the duties of a soldier and wanting to fight for what's right, even if everybody's like, "No, what the hell, dude?" It, this be a little hard to say. While I did really like J. Michael Straczynski's run, I don't think I was ever excited for a new issue to come out. That's honestly not the case here. I'm actually pissed that I have to wait till August for the next one. Which last time I felt that way about a comic book was Rook Exodus issue 6, where I read issue 5. I was like, you're really making me wait till October to read the issue 6. So good on you, Chip. But if you can keep this up, this may be the best run in quite a while. Maybe since what I've read of Rick Remender's run has been pretty good. Uh, I'll have to read through Nick Spencer's because I think Spencer's run may be better since I have the full context of everything he did. I don't know. I'll do reviews of all that. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of I want to do reviews of Cap runs post Brubaker because my plan is to read all of that and loop back around to Brubaker. So I don't know. Be on the lookout for those. But what do you think? Do you think this issue is bad or do you think it's great? Like me. Follow me on Twitter if you want to see me just post random bullshit. Um, and Comic Geeks for comic book reviews and stuff I don't always talk about here because I'm shit at making videos, as you can see, and keeping a consistent upload schedule. If you want to see more, I'm hopefully planning on reviewing the series issue by issue, but I also said that about TMNT, and that didn't work out, so yeah. I'm definitely going to try to make sure I do better effort about keeping up with this run issue by issue, because I think there might actually be stuff to talk about every time a new issue comes out. So if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, drop a like. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you all next time. and what I'm sure and hopefully will not be 7 months.